Hey everyone, I want to talk about a topic that I was asked in a YouTube comment or a TikTok, and that is why OCD doesn't discriminate, and why regardless of, who we are or where we were born, OCD is going to go for the things that you value the most. It's going to grip its teeth in there. It's not going to want to let go. The more you try to force a value, the more you try to force the present moment, it's really going to turn the heat up and really not going to, it's going to feel as real as it can get. Let's just put it to you that way. And I'll break all that down in the video. Before I go any further, please subscribe, hit that like button, comment down below. Many people get caught in this when it comes to conditional life acceptance, fairness, and deservingness. I'll talk about those as well. And if you're stuck with any OCD theme or anxiety or any other fears, please email us at phil@ocdrecovery.com. We work with people all over the world. If you don't speak English, we do translator calls, and we have webinars on a weekly basis too that are at 8:30 p.m. UK time on Tuesdays. And sometimes if we have a part 1, 2, we do more than one a week. So let's just talk about myself for a little bit. Before OCD became a big problem in my life, you would have thought I had a lot of things going for me. I was about to graduate grad school. I had a wonderful wife. We were about to be married, and I had all these. We were married. We just got married, and it would have seemed like a lot of things were turning around in my life because the year before I lost my father to cancer, then I lost my aunt, and then I lost my dog, all in like a 6-month period. So my mom lost her husband, her only sibling, and her dog. And she had a really rough time. But things seemed to be turning around. I had national boards coming up in school, and then my life came crashing to a halt. And about 4 months later, after I first developed really severe OCD, which started out with the fear of noticing a ringing in my ear, tinnitus-based fears, super heightened, all the compulsions, reading articles nonstop on audiology, I ended up in the mental hospital where I wanted to kill myself, and I tried to jump out of a moving car. Then after I left the mental hospital, police were called to my house numerous times in Florida and in Colorado. Interesting story, when the second or third time the police were called to my house here, it was like 3 o'clock in the morning. When the police officer walked in, we made eye contact and he went to my gym. I'm like, oh, shit. So that was, he was very professional. He's like, oh, he definitely knew who I was. It was like one of these faces. I'm like, hi. So yeah, that was fun. But it doesn't discriminate. And it doesn't matter where you're from. And it doesn't matter what your background is, your political opinions, your religious opinions, your beliefs on money, your belief on marriage, your spiritual beliefs. OCD knows exactly what you are scared of. It knows exactly what you don't want to feel, and it will mimic that in many ways and make it feel as real as it can get. It knows that you don't want to be embarrassed. It knows you don't want to have shame or guilt. It knows you don't want to have fear lingering for the remainder of your life. It knows you don't want to have chronic anxiety. It knows that you want to feel a certain way in your relationships. It knows it wants sex to feel amazing. It knows it wants your career to go in the way you want it to. You want the promotions. It knows if you're afraid of having your parents die. It knows if you're afraid of going to jail and societal outcast, harm OCD, HOCD, depending on where you live, gay OCD. Living in a certain place, maybe like the Middle East, where those fears are a little bit more prevalent. Cancel culture type fears, fear of rejection, and everything else you can imagine. So I know for myself, and I spoke about this so many times in videos, my particular fears were primarily fear, the fear of being uncomfortable forever, which now when I look back on it, that wasn't just sensory motor, blinking, swallowing, saliva, hyper awareness of my thumbs, belt line close. It very much was hyper awareness of any sensations. Anything and everything, clothing sensations, temperature sensations, irritability sensations, and anger sensations, and heightening those because of the fear of them always just changing, right? Morphing one thing to another, going back and forth and just switching around. Lots of fear of rejection, body dysmorphia, fear of being overweight, fear of being fat, fear of not having muscle, fear of being looked down upon against the members of the sex I'm attracted to, which is women. Even if when being married, I still had that fear, that persona I built against myself or for myself. And I had to shift a lot of those. Now, a lot of my beliefs, say my beliefs about the way the world should be, didn't need to change outside of the should. So instead of saying this is the way the world should be, it was I would highly prefer if the world was this way, but since it's not, and reality shows me that, and the evidence is primarily on my side, then I can live with the consequences of things being unfair. So I still held the same view, I just held it in a much looser fashion. Relationships the same way. I would prefer to be married and have children and have the white picket fence. But as there's no guarantee life I can have that, Because even if you do get married, and even if you do have children, there's no saying that those children will accept you, or your wife or husband will accept you, your partner, whoever it is. So it is really important to realize that there is no discrimination. And what tends to happen is until we go underneath all of the major fears that we hold, so for myself, as I was becoming more comfortable with sensations, aka fear, and sensory motor, my order doesn't matter, but it's just cool for hear the story. I went from tinnitus to blinking to swallowing saliva to hardcore body dysmorphia with fear. So that was kind of how my journey went in many ways. I had a lot of fear of rejection that I didn't know I had. That's where the body dysmorphia really took up. So I was really afraid of those things. And so that's how it didn't discriminate against me. If you're a mother who really loves their children, what better way to have POCD or harm OCD, or fear of not having connection and loving your children, or fear of what if I'm so focused on my recovery that my children know there's something about me and then they want to disown me. My mom can't handle me. I'm so mad for the way she raised me. She was so focused on her OCD. Many people are business owners, and you don't have to be a business owner, but a lot of the overwhelming frustrations of being a business owner and the day-to-day minutiae details. And I just handle things a lot better than I would have before. Prime example, Daisy again. I think she full-time tore her ACL, so we might have to go get surgery. It's not a cheap surgery. I'm not a fan of that, but we can make it work. I've had other things in my life. Many people know the story. I was switching insurances here in America. If you don't live in America, it's a little bit different. And I had insurance my whole life, medical insurance. And in those 2 weeks, I had 2 kidney stone surgeries. I got COVID, then I got pneumonia, then I dislodged a kidney stone. I had 2 surgeries, all in February, all suffering with sensory motor OCD. That was a really fun time in my life. And when I say fun, it was fucked. but it was a learning lesson. So I thought the mental hospital was bad, but everything was a learning lesson. I try to look at things through the lens of learning as much as I can. But the reason why this video is so important is because at the basis, the genesis of discrimination is fairness and deservingness. Whether that's a cultural discrimination, anything to do with the way you look or who you are as a person, and other people not accepting you, that's unfair. I don't deserve that. You should respect me. But the reality is the world doesn't care about us at all. The universe isn't listening. I know that's very difficult for many people to hear. If the universe was listening and there was a 1-to-1 ratio, that everyone would achieve their goals through prayer and what they want. That doesn't mean that prayer can't be helpful for some people, depending on their beliefs, if they're not using it compulsively. But the reality is it's the tough work that works day in, day out. But one of my favorite new quotes is from a high climbing documentary called Thin Lines. That one of the greatest things about life is you can go all in on something and still come up empty-handed. And that can sound really scary, but I think that's a really cool thing. And I really, really do like thinking about that. So that's something that you really want to think about. And breaking down fairness and deservingness will have to come down for breaking down the principles in the myth of self-esteem and the principles from How to Stubbornly Refuse. Now, if you're new to our channel, you can find our reading list at OCDrecovery.com underneath the free resource tab. And I'd recommend reading them in order. We have them in the specific order for a reason. I always tell people the first book, read it through. Then when you're done with it, go through and do the exercises on paper. Give a shot at it. Too much strict directions, what fear, this, that. Figure it out on your own. Then we can help in calls and stuff and go through that stuff on the webinars. That's what makes the calls very unique. They're very specific, very individualized to the person. We have a very unique insight into OCD because we all had OCD at the chronic level and because we work with it all day long, between all the content and webinars and everything like that. So that's the one thing you want to look at. If you think, why, oh, is me, victim mentality, the world wants you to be a victim. It wants you to be a victim in everything that you can be. Discrimination on the workplace and your family not understanding. But that, as empowering as it may feel, it's actually the illusion of power. Because true power in the way I see it, is the ability to have an opinion, not need to state it, and understand that other people don't need to respect you or anything else in between. And true power from a belief standpoint is being able to break down all the dogmas that the world holds. Little things such as, why shouldn't I have OCD? Why not me? Why not someone else? Who says I need to be married? Who says marriage is the best option? Who says you can't have multiple partners? Who says that you need to have money? Who says you can't live in a tent? Who says that you can't read all day or spend your days painting if you enjoy that? The only thing that matters in this particular life is your beliefs and the way you see it and your behaviors. And everything else is up to interpretation. And that's the way I look at it. So this is a little bit more of a philosophical video. Remember, deserving this and fairness are holding us back. And the more you think that OCD shouldn't go for something, the more you're trying to avoid watching my sensory motor videos, the more you're afraid of hearing certain things because of trigger warnings, OCD will have the upper hand. Thank you so much for watching. And then coming up this week, let me cross this one out. I have Being Your Authentic Self, how we'll never be able to know our true self. I have another big deep dive coming on sensory motor, and OCD coming back. What to do when OCD comes back after a while of not having it. This is a really good topic. And then responsibility OCD coming up from an individual that asked me to do that. Just based around making mistakes and the fear of feeling mistakes and rejection and everything else. Thank you so much. If you need help, please reach out. We can help you. Phil at OCDrecovery.com, and we'll get back to you soon. Have a good one, everyone.